So it's my hope that instead of us kind of rolling over
Mm.
and trying to anticipate what might happen, be like Costco. Be like Costco.
That's a t-shirt right there. Be like Costco.
There you go. There you
Look,
go.
I was going to add, and if Costco would like to sponsor this podcast.
Did you see something that says we're recording?
Okay.
Hey Jan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And Jackie Munson Gaines, welcome back. Um,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot for people my age to talk about because there's a lot happening. A lot has happened this year.
Oh my gosh, so much.
And it's been crazy. So the last time you were with us, I maybe a month or two ago, I posted that episode on my LinkedIn,
Okay.
and people were like, "Oh, thank you, because I'm in education, so
Uh-huh.
I'm in higher ed,
Okay.
and we're all kind of wondering, what do I do now, or can I do
Right.
something else, or should I try something else, or what's going to happen? Because we don't know what's happening from day to day." So I'm just gonna, first of all, welcome back. We're glad you're here.
Thanks. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Secondly, I have to say, you both look really nice. I often feel like I need to wear a tuxedo or a tie or something because you can only see like up to here.
Right.
So I'm like, I could be really fly, like my pants match just the jacket, but you can't see all that. So I gotta figure out something, for the next episode. So maybe a bow tie or something, so I can look somewhat decent on these things.
I say just be yourself, whatever you're comfortable in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm in my sneaker phase, so I don't like to dress up anymore. So
Okay.
that's kind of where I am. I'm going to skip around on our week. I do a script every week. I'm going to skip right to this
Okay.
because a lot of people have been laid off in
Hmm.
the past 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Some of them are back to work.
Hmm.
I don't know how that works with your check, because, we're Americans, so we pretty much, if you miss a check or two, you're pretty much done.
Hmm.
So, what advice do you have for people in that situation and people who think they might be in that situation?
Hmm. So I would say for the people who are currently in the situation, my hope is that they have set themselves up appropriately, you know, based on the worst case scenario, right? So no one ever wants to be laid off, but most of us know that, one of our goals, one of our financial goals should be to have at least 6 months of expenses in the bank.
Six.
Six. At
Uh,
least
I,
6 months of expenses in the bank, especially times like this, right? Because we don't know what's happening with the tariffs and we don't know what government agencies are going to be shut down. And, there's so much unknown that it's going to take longer for most people to find another opportunity because most companies, organizations, they're also uncertain. So
mm,
they're really hesitant to bring on new people, not knowing what's going to happen next.
do I've been telling people, as I said before, I'm in higher ed.
Mhm.
I'm a credentialed K-12 teacher. I always felt like I could go back and teach if I couldn't do anything else.
Right,
But
right.
I've been telling people, kind of sit tight right now. What advice have you been giving?
So I would say it depends on individual circumstances. I think you sit tight if, in fact, you enjoy what you're doing. The culture that you work in is supportive of you and other team members, and you're paid at a level that you're comfortable with. Yeah, definitely sit tight. However, just like any other situation, if you're not happy somewhere,
Mhm.
if in fact you're in a toxic environment, it's better to look, even if it takes you months and months and months to find something, because at least you have something to look forward to versus sitting in that toxicity from now on. So I think it depends on each person's individual situation. Now, I would never encourage quitting a job without a job unless it's so toxic that it's causing you some mental health challenges. But there's also a way around that as well. If your job is that stressful, you could go out on disability, get yourself together. While you're getting yourself together, also be looking for an opportunity. Perhaps you have to return, perhaps you don't have to return.
And so I don't dominate this conversation because these are things that people are asking in my office,
Of course.
because we don't really know. What about the people who have not interviewed, have not
Mm.
updated their LinkedIn, they don't know what to put on their resume because the last time they were on an interview was 20 or 30 years ago.
I would say if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So you should always have your resume updated. Have no idea what might come across your
Mhm.
desk, and it's going to take you 2 weeks to update your resume, and that job is then, taken down from a job board or from a company site. So have your resume updated.
I just want to say I really appreciate what you're saying because I think that, in particular, our generation has gotten really comfortable in positions because we have been there for decades, or maybe you were at the top of your field, so you don't really see like where you can go. But I
Mhm.
think this what's happening now, this climate is showing us that you should never be that comfortable.
Right. And that's what's unfortunate, right? Because people have become complacent and then something happens and they're not ready.
Mhm.
So again, stay ready. Stay ready. Unless you're, completely happy, you don't have to worry about a layoff situation. If you get laid off, you're fine. You might be in a position to be able to retire, or, you know, uh, maybe the company is going to offer some kind of severance that to bridge you to retirement, something like that. Everyone's individual situation is different.
So
So I can't like offer a one size fits all
Right,
approach.
right.
you talked about staying ready. If I'm not ready, how do I get ready? What's the first thing I need to do?
I would, in this day and age, I think the first thing you need to do is make sure you have an updated resume. The second thing you need to do is make sure you're on LinkedIn. The third thing you would need to do is start networking.
Mm.
The jobs that come across any kind of, any kind of posting, if you're able to network in, you're better positioned than if you just send a blind resume.
Hmm.
So if you know somebody who knows somebody who works for the organization and that you're able to send them your resume and then they present your resume, you're better off than just sending in a resume blind. So update your resume, get on LinkedIn and other sites, and then also start networking. Show up at different events, and not necessarily networking events, but other events where you have an opportunity to maybe meet people that you don't already know. And the other thing is to let people know that you're looking. Because
Mm.
if nobody knows that you're looking, how would they be on the lookout for you? Right?
I've seen that little thing on
Looking
people's
for work
picture.
on
Yeah,
on LinkedIn.
yeah. That
Yeah,
I was like,
so
oh man.
yep. So most of the time when you can actually see it, the person is probably not working, right? But as a person who does some recruiting, there is you can make that designation just for recruiters as well.
Oh,
And your current employer unless they're looking at your profile, right? Unless they're digging,
Mhm.
they won't know that you're officially looking. But recruiters will have that flag so that we can reach out to you.
So, resume.
Yeah.
If I haven't done a resume in 20 years,
Mhm.
how are there people who can help me with doing my resume? Is that something you might offer? Because, things have changed. The style has changed in 20
Yep.
years. So
Yep.
how can I get some help there?
Yeah. So I would say that there are organizations that assist with resume creation, definitely. But have you ever used Chat GPT? I mean, that is a free, option for you to put in some words. Hey, enhance this sentence. I was a sales rep with a consumer products business. How would you put that on your resume? You would be amazed at what chat will come up with to help or enhance any kind of sentence, an email even. So, yeah. I personally wouldn't pay me to do it, given other resources. However, we do resumes for, senior execs, entry level folks. Yeah, sometimes people want to pay for the service, sometimes they don't, right? I think people think because the resume is 1 or 2 pages, that it's something that's going to be relatively inexpensive to have created. But the problem with creating a resume is it's that continuous back and forth with the person saying, oh, I like this. No, I like that. Oh, I don't really like that design. So it takes up a lot of man hours in order to complete a resume.
How long should a resume be? You mentioned 2 pages.
Yeah. So I would say most of the time it's 2 pages, right? However, if you have worked for, several organizations and perhaps not just industry, but also, change. Like if you're an IT professional and then you went into education, then you want to make sure that you show both career paths.
Mm,
So that way it could be a little bit longer. But I would say two for people with, more than 10 years of experience to maybe 3 pages. And then of course, if you're, in healthcare and you need the Vitae,
yeah.
yeah, I mean there's are, 8,
Uh,
10 pages. So
Ours are as well in education, in higher ed anyway.
yeah.
So
Okay.
you
Okay.
you don't take anything off.
Right. Right.
And so everything you've ever published, every class you've ever taught,
Yeah.
and it goes back decades
Right.
in some
Right.
cases.
Right. If you were applying for a job, they know what to expect, right?
Right.
However, if you're in, say, human services and someone gives you a dissertation, I'm not sure that anyone's going to read it.
Jan, what are your thoughts about all this? Because I know, and the reason I'm asking is because there are people my age and older actually out there looking when they thought that, okay, I just have 5 more years left. I'm just going to stay here for 5 years and I'm going to be out of here. And we come to work on Monday and you don't have 5 years left.
Right. No, that happens. So you really have to focus in on your expertise, right? What is it that you do well? And what is it that you do well that you actually enjoy doing? Right? Because when I was sitting in the vice president of human resources seat, age was a number, right? So, we're not supposed to know people's age, et cetera, but you can look at a resume and get a feel for,
Mhm.
people's age, right? But when we were looking for specific skill sets, right? If we could get that person for 2, 3, 4 really good years, it was worth it to take that experienced, seasoned in, candidate versus, an entry level or a mid level candidate. So,
That
But
is
doesn't that
really good to
depend?
know.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Jan, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but doesn't that depend on um, your agency or company? Because I think that that's why a lot of people are kind of afraid to move because, you know, because they maybe they are 50-ish or 60-ish or whatever, even though they have a wealth of information, it's hard to pivot when you feel like people are looking at your age, even though you can come to the table with a lot of stuff.
Right. And I would say organizations who are looking for the best people to join their organizations, it shouldn't matter what age they are. It just shouldn't matter. And again, I would rather have 2 really good years with someone on my team versus, 6 years of me having to coach and coach and
Mhm.
coach and train and train. So it takes up a lot of my time.
That's something we don't hear a lot, the benefits of having a seasoned employee on your team, someone who can just come in and start working right away versus someone who needs to understand how this works. So
Yeah.
that's good to hear, and I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the other thing, right? So when I'm, either sitting in the seat or helping a client, we really do look at what does the team really need in order to be more effective, right? So it could be they're full of a bunch of seasoned,
Mhm.
experienced team members, and they need that millennial to come in to shake some things up,
Mhm.
improve processes, be quick on their feet, know chat GPT exists, etc. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want anybody to ever count themselves out before they even start.
I saw a job opportunity maybe about 6 months ago, and it had a long list of things as job opportunities very often do. Then at the very end, there was a paragraph that said, "Now we understand that no one is going to have all of these things.
Mhm.
We understand that women and people of color very often don't apply unless they have all of these things. So we're
Mhm.
encouraging you to apply."
Mhm.
Is that something that you see as the direction we are going? Are we there, or do people still not apply unless they have everything?
I would say I think the more that we as a people, right, people of color, women, the more we talk about the fact that white men apply for jobs even if they only have 30% of the experience that they're looking for, right? Because of privilege, quite honestly, right?
Mhm.
Um, but we have to start getting more like that.
Mhm.
If we know that we are in fact capable of more, then we should be moving forward with a role that maybe maybe I can't check every single box, but I can check enough of the boxes to feel confident that I would be successful in the role.
Um, so this comes up a lot. Do I
Okay.
stay here at this job, or do I go start my own company? You mentioned being the VP of HR. I'm sure that was somewhere. And now
Mhm.
you're here. How was that transition? Um, were you scared? Did it take something away from what you were doing? Was there a loss of income? All those things that we worry about. Uh,
Yeah. So I those worries are real. The struggle is real. So when I started my business, it'll be 20 years in April.
wow.
When I walked away from a vice president of human resources role, I have to admit, I had a husband who, had a job with benefits and was doing well. So I could take that kind of leap of faith. But the other thing that I did when I was still sitting in the role was to identify potential clients. So it didn't take as long to, to jumpstart the business than had it been if I just said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and make this move and not have prepped ahead of time. Again, it's another one of those situations where you have to have your financial resources in place before you're able to leave corporate America and start a business. Because in some cases, it could take 6, 8, 10, 12 months before you get your first client.
Mhm.
And again, that's through networking also. I mean, especially when you provide a service and not necessarily a product.
Right.
Um, so it's very relationship based. So I would say, stick to your 9 to 5 until you have been to different trade shows, met with different organizations. I'm a board member of the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council. So we have a procurement fair every year. We have other things, golf outings, other activities. Show up to those types of events and start networking with other people who might be in the same uh, business that you're in and or corporations.
That's good advice, even if you're not transitioning to another job or working for yourself, because the networking piece is real. I mean,
It's so real, Ernest. I I can't stress that enough, right? Have you ever, it is rare that someone has gotten a job, not entry level, but if you're a professional level person without being networked in. It's just unusual. Now, what that does though, it's two things, right? So if you need to network in and the people who are in a position to, pass on your resume, they tend to find people who are like them,
Mhm.
right? So then that continues that vicious cycle of women and people of color not being able to go into organizations. But what I have experienced, and I would say probably over the last 5, 10 years, is, and I'm going to be specific about Black people, we have done a much better job of looking out for one another than
Mhm.
we had, in the previous 10 years.
Can you say that one more time just so everybody here hears it?
Absolutely. I believe it's our responsibility, right? As a Black person to figure out how you can help other Black people achieve, succeed, and beyond. I mean, we have to be like other groups of people
Mhm.
who pull people up along with them. To say today that you're the only somewhere, that's your fault.
Mhm.
Right? That's your fault. You should never, or I mean, never is a strong word, right? But you should not be the only, because part of your, I can't even say responsibility, but part of who you should be is finding someone else to bring along.
Yeah, I often try to tell people, when you make it up the ladder, don't kick the ladder
No,
so
no.
nobody else can come up
Right,
behind you.
right. And I would say, Ernest, I would think years ago, I felt like people did like to be the only. Today, they know that we can't be the only, or else we're not going to advance as a people. And today, more than ever, we have to look out for one another because DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is the new N word.
Hmm.
Yes.
They're not concerned about women advancing. They're not concerned about veterans advancing, the two groups that have really benefited from affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Right.
they are worried about Black people advancing. And why? I mean, literally last night I did a talk at a church, and the only Black people in the room was my husband, my dad, my sister-in-law, and another couple. And we were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So if we don't help each other out, who else will?
Right.
I talked about the need for all the people in the room to be allies, right? They're
Mhm.
here to have this discussion. But sometimes people don't want to step out and support other people. So we got to do it ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. As a teacher, we're always looking, the numbers of Black teachers are dwindling. So,
Or what?
I'm sorry,
What did you say? The number of
the
Black teachers?
numbers of Black teachers are dwindling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The numbers of Black male teachers are almost nothing. But so what we do when we try to recruit Black teachers is try to place them in a place where they won't be the only Black teacher. So they'll have someone to talk to. So when you're the only anywhere, that's a lonely existence.
Right. Right. So when I work with organizations to help to develop their strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's one of the things that we talk about to make sure that the people that we bring in have a small village around them so
Mhm.
that they can, work with each other, support each other so that they will in fact stay. Right. So let me share this statistic with you. In 2023, of the Fortune 500 companies, only four of them had a Black person in the CEO position. Four. So if there was parity around the percentage of Black people, 12, 13%, and Fortune 500 companies, we should have 60 Black people at the table. So what I wanted to show, again, a visual to folks, that if there is a perception of a threat, should there be a threat based on this data?
Mhm.
And the answer would be no, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of misinformation because one would lead you to believe that of the Fortune 500 companies, there had to be at least 300 Black people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And there are, in fact, four. That's the data from 2023. Four who sit in a CEO role. So there you go.
Um, Jan, anything that you want to add to any of this conversation? Because I know that in you all are next. They're
Yeah,
starting
for
with
no.
education, so
Mhm.
you're next. Uh,
No, and here and just like in education, like there's a lot of not knowing what's going to happen. Um, because a lot of the things that we do, even though I'm not currently um, in a government agency, I've been in a government agency, but the work that I do is supported by federal funding.
mhm.
So, so yeah, there's a lot of uneasiness, to that. You don't really know, what to do. But I did kind of even want to go back and speak on the fact that even the field that I'm in it's heavily dominated by women,
Yeah.
except in leadership,
Mm.
Right.
except in executive leadership.
Right. Right.
And even the executive leadership are not people of color.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so that, even all of that is important. So when you start talking about like, bringing up people behind you, that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
For me, every step I've had, so if I was a first line supervisor, then I'm working on the people to come behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a director, I'm working on people to come behind me. Like I heard this minister say that, you know, you can be in a situation where your name gets into rooms that you aren't even allowed in. And so
So
I think that that's really kind of what we have to do is we have to be the person like that gets people's name into rooms that they're not even allowed to come into yet. Um,
absolutely.
I mean, as it relates to human services, yes. I mean, there's a lot of angst around, what's going to happen next. And that I do think that people are trying to figure out how to pivot or if I should wait for severance and all of that. I know you talked about a little bit about changing jobs, but can you speak on actually pivoting? Like, some of us are in roles that we didn't even really want to be in to begin with. And now we find ourselves like, okay, this is about to happen. How do I use this particular skill to transition me to another industry?
No, so I believe leadership is leadership, no matter what industry you're in. So if in fact you are effective in coaching people up, dealing with conflict, if you understand your organization's finances, like all of those things that you need to be effective as a leader, it transcends all industries. So when you're writing your resume, right, it's less about where you worked and more about the skills that you've acquired.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
I'm listening to all of this.
Me too.
Good.
Me too.
Good.
And before we go any further, do you want to provide your phone number, website, or email address? Because I think you might be busy with because people are in need.
Yeah, no, we have been really busy. I would say from this time last year to now, there has not been a lull, which is, it's good for us, right? But it's not necessarily good for people because I find that people are in all different situations. But sure, you can visit my website at www.jmgconnects.com. My email is Jackie, and you can see how I spell it, JACQUIE, at jmgconnects.com. And then my phone number, area code 313-355-2725.
And we will put all of that information in the show notes so that everyone will have it.
And my LinkedIn, I also have a LinkedIn, but I can't tell you what that address is, but it's under Jackie Munson Gaines.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we'll make sure everybody has that. As we wrap up for today, first of all, thank you for being here.
of course.
I took copious notes.
Yeah, I did too. And
So,
honestly, I'm thinking, I'm thinking that this needs to be a two-parter or a three-parter, just because, like, even before the political climate that we're in, I think this was on the minds of people.
mhm.
From our last season,
Mhm.
the episode that you were on, Jackie, was like the most watched until we did the dating one, of course. But so,
Oh, I missed
so
the dating
either
one. Is it out there?
It is.
Okay, okay,
either
okay.
people want a new job or they want a new boo. I don't
Well,
know.
well, 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 I get it. I mean, change, both of those are major changes, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And both of those take a long time to find. So, yeah, yeah.
So, just our quick rapid fire questions. Any quick advice that you can give for those who are currently in the job market? What should they do tomorrow?
First of all, don't give up, right? The unemployment rate it's at 4%. So that means that there are opportunities out there. A lot of times when the unemployment rate is that low, it's people who have probably given up and have decided that they're not going to look. So I would say roll up your sleeves and start networking. LinkedIn is a great way to network. You can, look at people who are in industries that you're interested in and hey, would you like to have a coffee or a virtual coffee? That's the other thing too. You don't even have to be in the same city as people anymore. You can do a
Right.
virtual coffee. But you know, hang in there. Hang in there. I mean, eventually you're going to find the right opportunity at the right time for you.
So, do we wait for the right fit or do you just take something?
It depends on your finances, right? It depends on how long you can hold out. So, and fit is interesting, right? So fit can be, yeah, we try not to use the word fit anymore because what does that really mean?
Mhm.
A lot of times when it was fit 20 years ago, I had a recruiter tell me that I was white like, so I was a good fit. So
Mm.
again, what does fit really mean?
I have
Wow.
so many thoughts about that,
I
So
know.
many
Wow.
thoughts.
Like, wow.
So many
Wow. I have
thoughts.
no words. Like,
So
wow.
many thoughts, right? The fact that it came out of his mouth, one,
Yeah.
and the fact that I believe he wanted me to view that as positive, right?
Right.
But again, the privilege of it all.
wow. So,
I,
as we wrap up,
Howard John Wesley, let me tell you about this. Howard John Wesley, I don't know if you all saw his sermon about um, DEI and grace or something like that, but he said that privilege wants to dismantle DEI because DEI dismantles privilege.
hmm,
Mm.
Want me to say it again?
That's a
yes,
good
I
quote.
do.
Yes. That's a good
Privilege
quote. That's a
wants
good.
to dismantle DEI because DEI dismantles privilege. So again, it's that threat that again, based on statistics, it shouldn't be there.
Right, right.
But again, if you give us a chance, right, we might be able to catch up.
Because in
And
essence, right now, today, there is no real threat. You're
today there is no real threat,
right.
right? There is no real threat. The data shows, again, the people who benefited most from affirmative action and diversity, equity, inclusion, white women.
Mhm.
We are the last group of people who benefited from from programs that were put in place because of us
Right.
advocating for them.
Right.
On that note, any final words?
Yeah, I do have some final words. So we know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is under attack. The up the and I've been in this space around DEI for 20 years running my own business. And prior to that, with Frito-Lay, Philip Morris, I mean, they know that having a diverse group of people, and diversity is so broad, right?
Mhm.
Leadership styles, socioeconomic, life experiences, and then of course the race, gender, etc. But they know what we know, again, data says, is that you have better outcomes, more productivity, more revenue, when in fact you have diverse groups of people in your organization. Decision making, when you're able to pull from all different populations, it's much more robust. So with that, I want people to remain or have Costco, right, as their role models. Costco has said, we're doubling down on DEI. We believe it's a strategic imperative for us to have people who are different. So instead of us running away from it, continue to embrace it. Why are we changing our position based on not really knowing what's going to come of all of this, right? Because there's lots of lawsuits and,
Mhm.
there are private companies that have said, we're not changing. So it's my hope that instead of us kind of rolling over
Mhm.
and trying to anticipate what might happen, be like Costco. Be like Costco.
That's a t-shirt right there. Be like Costco.
There you go. There
Look,
you
I was going to add, and if Costco would like to sponsor this podcast, you can reach out to us, and we could gladly negotiate.
And
Yeah.
Jen, as we wrap up, what do we want people to do?
We Oh, before I get there, I just want to say this. If you're watching this and you didn't take notes, you need to rewatch it and take some notes, so that you can really have some strategic ways of going by your next step. And with that, I'll say, please subscribe, like, and share.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Will
Jackie
do.
Gaines. We're
It's
glad.
always a pleasure.
We hope you got a lot out of this. I know I did. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.